Okay, I've talked about the things that I like about the car. Now, in the 3 years I've had it, I'm going to tell you some of the things I don't really care for about the car. One of the big ones, and this is kind of with all German cars, especially modern German cars, is they have electrical gremlins. I always joke that the Axis powers should get back together, and Germany and Japan should team up. Let the Germans do the mechanical portion, let the Japanese do the electrical portion, and you'd have a really good car. But like most German cars of the modern era, these have some electrical gremlins, so I'll be driving along. Sometimes it's really rare, but it happens. I've had an oil pressure, complete loss of oil pressure warning that just restarting the car, shutting it down, starting it back, cleared the fault. Never had that problem since. That was 2 years ago. Sometimes I'll get a notice that the PSM, the traction control, and the ABS have failed. Cut the key off, cut it back on, it's fine. The biggest thing, and this isn't so much an electrical gremlin as it is just a fault with the design. As these cars get older, the hydraulic rams that actuate the spoiler in the rear start to leak, and they eventually fail. And they have micro switches that determine, how fast they're going up and the position they're in. So as they start to leak fluid, one side may go up slightly slower than the other. I've had this for 3 years. It still goes up and down perfectly each time, but every time the spoiler deploys, I get an error warning. Spoiler failure. And it still functions, it still goes up and down, but it's irritating. Every time you pass 75, you get an error message, just because it's slightly off because of that fluid leak. And the cost to replace those components, for similar money, you can either get these electrical rams that are out there now that gets rid of all the fluid, and you still have the deployable spoiler in a variety of lengths. You determine what length you want, or you can just get an aftermarket GT2 look wing, which I think is the path I'm going to go on. So then you have a fixed spoiler, and it looks more aggressive, and you never have to worry about the error message of the up and down spoiler failure. Oh, there goes the 911. Alright, another thing that's irritating, this isn't my daily car, so it sits in the garage a good portion of the time. I put about 2,000 miles a year on it, and if you don't drive the car in about a 7 to 9 day window, the battery will go flat. There's just, electronics on this that drain the battery while it sits. And the biggest pain in the ass is the front trunk and the rear, the engine cover, are electrically actuated. So if the battery's dead, you can't open the hood, the front trunk, which is where the battery lives. You can't open that to jump the car. So they have this procedure where you essentially pop off the fuse panel in the driver's side footwell, and it's got a little jump lead there. So you connect your battery or your little jump start kit to that jump lead on the positive end, and then you ground the other side, and that gives it enough juice for you to pop the front trunk, and then you can charge the battery. So I keep this one on a trickle charger most of the time, but sometimes when you put it away, you don't know if you're going to get it out in a couple of days, so you don't put it on the trickle charger, and then all of a sudden it's a week and a half and the battery's dead, and you can't open the trunk to get to the battery to charge the car. And so that just becomes a pain in the ass. But if you drive the car regularly, no problem, or if you always put it on a trickle charger, no problem. Okay, another negative point for me with the 996 Turbo is the button placement. So all of the buttons on either side of the radio, whether it's for rear defrost, rear wiper, the traction control, the door unlock button, they're all these on-off rocker type switches, and you have a light that illuminates, like an LED, when the function is active, and then you have a symbol for whatever it is. So you have a symbol for a key for the lock, or the rear defrost window symbol. So you have all these symbols, but it's non-intuitive which you're supposed to press to activate it. Do you press where the light is, or do you press where the symbol is? So Even looking at it now and having owned the car, I sometimes forget. So like if the doors are locked, the light's illuminated. To unlock the doors, you hit the light. To relock them, you hit the little key symbol. For the rear defrost, to enable the rear defrost, you press the symbol, the painted symbol on the switch. To disable it, you hit the illuminated light that came on after you enabled the system. So it's a bit non-intuitive. I think it's pretty confusing, and that's just something Porsche's not usually known for, is bad ergonomics. But I think, and it could just be me, but I think it's a bit confusing. Another thing that's really bad about the switches is the whole left bank of switches that includes traction control, the deployment to manually raise and lower the rear wing, and the rear wiper, as well as the intermittent wiper speed adjustment dial. They're all here on the left. They're all obstructed by the right side of the steering wheel, so you can't see any of those switches unless you move out to the side or crane your neck. So that's a little bit more distracted than you want to be when you're driving this car, and that's another example where it's not intuitive, not ideal. The last thing I want to talk about that is a really big deal, a really big issue with these cars, is the availability of tires. So these cars came stock, if memory serves, 225 40s up front, 225 40 18s, 295 30 18s in the rear. If you want that same size now, there's, at least on Tire Rack, one manufacturer. It's Michelin, and they're the Michelin Pilot Sport PS2s. The fronts are about $450 a piece. The rears are over $600 a piece. So if you want to go back with the rubber this car is intended to be driven on, you got to spend, almost $2,000, or a little over $2,000 for a set of tires. The other thing is those tires are almost always on back order. So even when you need that one really expensive set, they're not available. I think Nitto or Toyo makes that same size that you can find sometimes. So you may be thinking, well, big deal, just get a 305 or a 235. Well, that's all well and good, but these have an old-fashioned all-wheel drive system that uses a viscous coupling. So you have a series of clutches in that coupling. So if you do not match the front and rear tire diameters to within 3%, so your overall diameter of the rear wheels versus the front wheels, they have to be within 3% of each other. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be slipping those clutches, and you're going to burn up, your viscous coupling or one of your differentials. So that's a huge con, that there's just so little tire availability. I get that the car is 10 to 15 years old, depending on which year you own, but it's still really frustrating to not be able to find, good quality rubber and have a decent amount of choice in what tires you have available to you. But other than that, there's a few other niggling points, but for the most part, I covered the big downsides of this car, and they're not many, and it wouldn't stop me from buying it all over again. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got some information. If you have any other questions or want to know anything else about the car, just let me know in the comments. I thank you for liking and subscribing, and we'll see you